Hi, everyone. I'm Paul with MadCap Software. Going to talk to you today about domains and vanities in MadCap Central. So what do I mean by that? I'm talking about the URLs, the path that people use to get to your output. So you generate your output and you have a site up on MadCap Central and you connect the two. Well, you got this URL. Well, in Central, you actually have a lot of control over what that URL is and what is in it. So let's go into Central and see exactly what you can do. So here is my Central license. I'm on the sites page. I'm going to expand one of these and you can see what the URL is. HTTPS, this one is set to live. So HTTPS fictionsoft1.mcoutputtest.com/ got some numbers in there /default.htm. Okay, let's break all of this down and see how you can change actually all of this, or the vast majority of it anyway. Okay, so let's go onto the URLs tab up here at the top. By default, you just have one domain in here. So you've got your central license and you haven't added your own domain. You get this out of the box and the text on here is pretty light. If you hover over it, you can kind of see what's in here. So my license is a FictionSoft license. And so by default, that's your domain is going to, the default domain is going to have that in it. So your your company name, whatever you name your license, but you can change part of this. So this one is fictionsoft1.mcoutputtest.com. All right, I'm going to click on this and select edit, and it brings up this dialog. So now we can see it a little bit more clearly in here. All right, so you can actually change the first part of this subdomain, right? You cannot change this part, mcoutput.com. I'm seeing test, mcoutputtest.com, because I actually am working on a different server, but you're going to see mcoutput.com. That is Central's. So that is the server, or that is the domain provided by Central that you would use, but you can change this to something else. So in this case, I've got this site and I'm thinking, all right, this is my company called FictionSoft, but maybe I want to make this a little bit, I could change this to anything. I could put FictionSoft Incorporated. I could change it that way. I could get the one out of here. Or maybe I want to make this specific, that it's not just about FictionSoft, it's about the documentation. So I could add FictionSoft Docs or FictionSoft Help. Let's do that. And .mcoutputtest.com, and I click save and it changes there. Now I can go back to my sites and you can see that it's changed in here. FictionSoft help.mcoutput, in my case, test.com, and then the rest of it. So that is one way, one place where you can control the domain. You can do that. But a lot of people like to have more control. They want to use their own custom domain, something that their company already has. They don't want to use this mcoutput.com. So you can do that. So what you do is you add this to the URLs page in here, and that is what you associate your sites with, okay? Instead of using the one out of the box provided by Flare. All right, so the first thing that you really need to do is make sure that you have the domain that you want, and you need to go to your registrar and set up what is called a Cname record. And I'm just going to show you an example here. This one happens to be, I believe this is in GoDaddy, right? So you create a Cname, and that's, of course, you see the type there. All right, so you have to put in GoDaddy's case, these are what the labels are, host. All right, so you need a subdomain. You got your company name, whatever it is, in my case, fictionsoft.com, or actually in the rest of this video, I'm going to switch this because I don't really have the FictionSoft thing all set up. I'm going to use one called MadCap Test 2. madcaptest2.com. Let's say that that's the name of my company. Weird name for a company, madcaptest2.com. But then I want at my subdomain, the part to go before that, I could put help in here or documentation or docs, whatever I want, but you need a subdomain in there. And then you point to the MadCap API. And that's this, madcloud.api.azurewebsites.net. Make sure you have that in there. All right. And then you just click, fill this out also. You're going to want to refer to your registrar's documentation for the fields that they have and all the information in that. But you need to set up this Cname record, you save it. Okay, that's good. You're ready to go. Okay, so let's say that I did that. I'm going to go into my URLs page here, and I'm going to click this plus button. And now I can add my host map domain. So let's say that I want mine to be help.madcaptest2.com. That's the domain that I got, and I have, and then my subdomain. So I do that, and I click validate domain. It brings up this page, and it is wanting you to select a certificate, an SSL certificate. You need to have that. Well, the good news is MadCap has one that you can just use. So you can select this, but maybe your company has its own SSL certificate. And this is in a PFX file. So whoever in your company is in charge of this sort of thing, your website, you want to work with them and see, hey, do we have our own SSL certificate that we want to use? If so, you can click this button, select that, and move on from there. But in this case, I'm just going to use the MadCap one. I'm going to click this. All right, so it's all getting closer. Now I'm just going to click bind domain and SSL certificate, and it's going to run. So this process is going to go, it can go up to 10 minutes, but in my experience, it usually doesn't take that long most of the time. It's usually just a couple of minutes, but we don't all want to sit here in the video and stare at this. So I'm just going to pause and come back and finish this up. And it's done. Okay, so when it completes successfully, you're going to see domain is valid, and you're going to see the information for that. All right, so we're done there. And if you did need to go back and make any changes, you can just click this button down here, but we are good with that. All right, so let's actually close out of this. And there it is. There is our new row in our URLs grid, help.madcaptest2.com. All right, cool. And you can see the certificate and that it's bound and all that good stuff and when it expires. So we need to now switch to that, because right now, for example, all of these actually are using the default one, the fictionsoft help.mcoutputtest.com in here. And we want to use the custom one. So what we do is we open up that site, and in this dialog, we select the new one that we want. And I'm going to click save, and you can do that for, the other ones too. And I'm going to refresh, and there is the new one, https help.madcaptest2.com, and then the rest of it. Okay, so now I have switched, and I am actually using my own company's URL, my own company's domain, which is really cool. Now I'm going to go ahead and quickly change these other two to that, because probably what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to use one or the other. You're probably not going to use the MadCap one for some and your custom one for others. In most cases, you're probably going to use, the same one for all of them. So let's switch them all over and click refresh. All right, so there, that one, they're all using it. So here is another thing that you can do with your custom domain, and that is you can choose a default one, because somebody might come into your URL. They might go to help.madcaptest2.com in my case, and press enter. And if you don't select a default domain, they're going to get a 404 page because it's not they haven't gone all the way to where the actual entry point is for that output. So you're really just kind of creating a redirect here by doing this. So you go into the URLs tab, and let's go to edit this thing. And now on the left side, we're going to select default site. And by the way, you can select sites here, and you can see all the sites that are using that. In this case, those three. I'm going to select default site. Now, which one do I want to use? Let's say that the module 1, HTML5, module 1 is just what I determine I want people to go to if they go to the root. All right, so I'm going to click save there, and then just get out of this dialog and go back to sites, open this up. And so actually, sorry, go back here, go back to edit this. Now I go back down to sites, and you can see this one has an icon next to it, right? Mod 1 HTML5. That is the default one. Now, if somebody goes in and they type in help.madcaptest2.com and they press enter, this is the output that they're going to see. All right, so that's just another thing that you probably want to do when you are setting up your custom domain. Now, let's look further in this URL. Let's say, okay, we're happy with our custom domain. Now, what's the next part? Well, you kind of have this auto-generated number in here. And what this is about is it's going, okay, this is your domain, but what's the output? And so this is a way for Central to direct it to the right project, the right target, the right build, that information. Okay, but this number is just sort of, that's kind of butt ugly, isn't it? So it doesn't really tell you much. So you can create what's called a vanity for this site, and it'll replace that number. So let's open up this site here, and it's right here after your domain. Now, what do you put in there? Well, again, that's up to you, and it might be similar to what you have for your name. In my case, I've got, for example, the Central documentation. Mine isn't versioned, and all of my stuff is in one big project. So I just have Central there. Maybe you just can simply put the name of a product there, or maybe you need to specify the project and the target and the version number. All right. So I could do something like that. I could say mod 3, and this is help. And I could say V1 if that's a version. If it needs if you need to have version control in there. All right, so I do that and I click save. All right, let's refresh this thing again. And there we go. help.madcaptest2.com/mod3help V1. All right, that's still sort of a mouthful, but at least this has some meaning more than that auto-generated number. So that is another thing that you can do to control the URL. And the final thing in this URL is your entry point here. I mentioned in an earlier video that this is actually an HTML5 output. And so if you, in Flare, if you don't provide the if you don't provide an output, a specific output file name, it's going to use default.htm. I could go into my Flare target on that general tab in there, and I could put zippity-doo-dah. And so then this would be zippity-doo-dah.htm. Or if it were a different output, like a PDF, there's the same thing. You go in and that controls the last part. So you can see that you actually have control from beginning to end of this whole URL. So I would just say, decide what you want and try to get it set up as early as possible when you have your central license, because what you don't want are all these old links that are out there that you've given away over time, that you've given to people, and then you decide to change your domain. Well, those things, unless you have a redirect, those things will break. Okay, they won't get to that spot. So decide what do you want to use? Do you want to use MadCap's default domain? Do you want to use your own custom one? How do you want your vanities? Do you want to use vanities? How do you want those to be named? Decide all that, set it up, and then once you got that in place, you're good to go, and you probably won't need to go back and change it. All right. That is it for this video. One more video in this series. We are going to talk about themes, controlling the look and feel of things beyond your output, some central pages that people might see, and you can control how those look. So we're going to do that in the next video.